Marku, musisz wyciszyć mikrofon.
No tak, ale może ten wyłącz, Marek. Marek, może ten wyłącz, nie?
Musi być ten.
Trzeba wyłączyć mikrofon w
komputerze? Myślisz?
No na pewno.
One słyszały nas.
Tak. A, no tak, to może.
Hello. 1, 2, 3. Papa mnie nas słyszą?
Tak, to skoro Ania słyszy, to i Pani słyszy.
Ja słyszę chyba.
Nie, to...
So let's go to our discussion panel. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, friends, my name is Ryszard Pawlak. I'm professor at University, head of the Department of Methodology of Learning Mathematics. I welcome all our guests, including remote one. I'm not convinced that my voice is today good for all. I especially warmly welcome the main participants of our discussion panel. So let me introduce our honorary guest, Professor Mariana Bosch, University of Barcelona. Professor Nuria de Los Angeles Clement Rodriguez, University of Huelva. Sorry, I'm not sure of the pronunciation. Professor Ewa Swoboda, the State University of Technology and Economics. Professor Tomasz Szemberg, Pedagogical University of Kraków. Professor Piotr Błaszczyk, also Pedagogical University of Kraków. Professor Edyta Juskowiak, Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, Vice Dean of the Faculty. And Professor Eva Korczak-Kubiak, my colleague. Recently, our city, Łódź, twice hosted conferences of young mathematicians. At the beginning of this year, Łódź hosted conference of Association of Maths Teachers. During this conference, I participated in a very fine discussion panel about our dream about school. Taking into account today's meeting, one can say, less objectively, that Łódź has become a center of such kind conferences. If you ever work on math problem, then we often encounter barriers that we have to overcome. Therefore, the topic of our conferences is how to overcome barrier in the teaching and the learning. Some proposition in this topic has been presented by artificial intelligence, which has been included in conferences materials. What kind of barriers we have in our area? For me, some certain barrier is modern technical support, which replaces students taking, give ready-made task solution and so on. Wolfram Alpha, artificial intelligence, GeoGebra, and all these student has in his pocket, in his smartphone. I know that this is great opportunities, but is also great danger. Why should I bother if computer making me ready-made task solution? Another barriers, lack of motivation, lack of basic notion, negative beliefs, and in my private point of view, seeing in geometry. Seeing means we can see some element from the set of other elements, even if our main element is invisible. Invisible means that we cannot see it directly. But this is there are just my observation. More interesting is the question: what famous, outstanding specialists in this area, guests of our panel, think about it? Unfortunately, we have limited time for our discussion. Therefore, I would like to ask all our guests to limit their speech to 5-7 minutes. First, I'm asking Professor Mariana Bosch to take the floor and present your suggestions connected with this topic. Please present your conceptions.
Thank you very much. Can you hear well? Thank you.
No problem. It is possible to...
Louder?
Yes.
Okay, I will speak louder. I am Mariana Bosch from the University of Barcelona. I do research. Yes, okay. Can you hear well? No? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? No? Nuria, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Se ha quedado congelado.
Dice que se oye flojo. Tengo a Nuria allí que me dice, a Monse Alsina, que está allí y me dice que se oye flojo. Ay, no te oigo. Tú me oyes bien, de volumen, sí. Vale, ok.
Hola, puc entrar un moment?
Sí. Sí, després. Hello.
Nie wiem, czy tak coś będzie. To musiałby ten laptop być w... A, to ja obraz w sumie prezentuję. Ale dlaczego to na to prezentacja? No dźwięk tylko mikrofon, no to dobrze tu. Trzeba przyłożyć tak.
Hello.
Gdzie zaburzenie partyzanckie? Gdzie ma głośnik? No. Nie wiem. Magda, chodź szybko. Tu z tyłu musi mieć głośnik. Myślę, że ona będzie widziała. Tylko troszkę mnie też. Gdzie masz głośnik? Tak, tu w komputerze.
W którym miejscu jest umieszczony?
No dobrze, no.
A chcecie podłączyć?
Nie, chcę po prostu przyłożyć do głośnika.
Wiesz co, kurczę, ja mam przejściówkę, to ja
Nie, spokojnie. Znaczy ktoś musi coś powiedzieć. Oni muszą coś
1, 2, 3.
Oni muszą powiedzieć coś.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me well?
A little better.
A little better. I can speak louder? Is
Yes.
it okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I will start. I said that I am a researcher at the University of Barcelona, and I do research in mathematics education. In our approach that we call the anthropological theory of the didactic, we very much consider the idea of barrier that was posed in this panel, together with the one of conditions for teaching and learning mathematics. We talk about conditions and constraints that affect mathematics teaching and learning, or more generally, any kind of mathematical activity. And we talk about the ecology of mathematical practices to refer to these conditions, which are positive, and constraints or barriers that are negative. And as was presented, there are multiple factors that affect the ecology of mathematical practices. Some are very general and have been mentioned. For instance, the use of mobile phones in our daily life, or the fact that students are used to find immediate responses to their desires, for instance. In our research, we tend to focus on the most mathematical ones, those that are related to the knowledge that is taught and learned. Therefore, we are concerned about the kind of mathematical knowledge that is proposed to be taught and the criteria that are used. For example, when we introduce negative numbers or integers, if we do that before the teaching of algebra, which is the case in many countries, this dramatically changes the conditions of the teaching of integers, because negative numbers are algebraic entities. They are essential for the elementary algebraic work, but not at all for measuring quantities. So we can say that introducing negative numbers before algebra is a barrier to the learning of negative numbers. And there are many of these kind of mathematical barriers. However, in our research, I will open the perspective. In our research these past 20 years, we consider more general conditions that strongly affect the kind of mathematical activities that is proposed in the classroom and at the university. And this set of conditions we model in terms of paradigms. Today, there is a paradigm that prevails that we call the paradigm of visiting works. And in this paradigm, that we know it very well, students are proposed a set of contents or a set of mathematical works they must study, they must know something about. And these works are proposed in a sequential order. First, you have to study or visit or learn natural numbers, then negative numbers, then algebra, etc. So this paradigm imposes a lot of constraints and barriers to develop mathematical practices. To analyze them, we consider a counter paradigm, what we call the paradigm of questioning the world, which is for the moment a theoretical model, but which is still starting to appear in some places. And in this model, instead of a list of contents, students are proposed a set of important social and scientific relevant questions to address. In this paradigm, mathematical works are also studied, but only when they appear as potentially necessary to elaborate answers to the questions. So in this paradigm of questioning the world, the study of mathematical works is motivated by the need to answer relevant questions. The questions are important and the answers are important. It is not like today in the paradigm of visiting works, there are also problems proposed to be solved and questions, but the students know that the important thing is not the answer to the problem, but the tools that they have to use to solve the problem. This is a kind of fake questioning and a barrier that is imposed by the old paradigm of visiting works. And then when we consider this paradigm of questioning the world, which is a paradigm close to considering mathematics as an inquiry activity, we found many barriers that come from the paradigm of visiting works. When we design and implement new instructional proposals that are long processes of 8, 10, 15, or 20 sessions studying a given open question, we found many barriers that correspond to hidden assumption of the paradigm of visiting works. I cannot develop them here in some minutes, but I can mention some of them. To me, the most important ones that we find is some that are related to the lack of mathematical tools to develop such kind of inquiries at school. We lack of words, terms, and resources, because the mathematics that are in the curricula and in the textbooks, they are crystallized, they are already made, and we need mathematics in process. And therefore, we find barriers to help students raise questions and take them seriously, to collectively elaborate answers, to search for already answers and critically analyze them, to elaborate final reports. These are the kind of barriers we find with the students and with the teachers. I'm almost done. For instance, we found barriers because we have to embed teachers, be the only one who raise questions, be the only one who propose new works to study, be the only ones who provide the final, definitive, and correct answers, accept not being the experts, etc. So our current research focuses on the barriers that appear when trying to evolve, to move from the paradigm of visiting works to this paradigm of questioning the world, and especially on those of mathematical nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your interesting talk. It opens the possibility of broader perspective on this issue. Some are waiting with interest for a comment of Professor Nuria Rodriguez. Please take the floor and present your. You have some presentation on your computer?
Yes, if it's possible.
Marek. One moment, please, because this is next problem. Okay. Okay, please.
Hi, sorry.
Marek, już nie ma.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Bueno, thank you very much. Good morning. Buenos días para los españoles. Thank you for the invitation. And I am trying to focus the questions of the panel in my experience researching on mathematics teachers mainly. So I only answer to the first question now. I understand that after we can deal with other questions. I have transformed the question of barriers into difficulties and focus on the teaching of mathematics. Teaching is a complex activity that must take into account multiple aspects, and in this scheme, Jaworski attempts to characterize this complexity differentiating three elements. One of them is the management of learning, that is referring to teaching strategies which influence the classroom atmosphere and the way in which lessons are conducted. For example, management of learning includes classroom groupings, planning of tasks, setting of norms. Other elements is sensitivity to students. For example, when before are told about motivation, this sensitivity to students is inherent in the teacher-student relationship and influence the way in which the teacher interacts with them. And finally, mathematical challenge that I think that is very important describes the challenges offered to students to engender mathematical thinking and activity and the way in which the teacher offers mathematics to her students or their students. Because I think that sometimes the mathematics that we give to the student is in one position, sometimes is so is not interesting for them, and sometimes is not possible for them to deal with this mathematics. So if we take into account these three elements, we can see many difficulties related to is one of them. And I think, or I speak about some of them. For example, related to management of learning, students and teachers must build shared norms to work in mathematics classrooms. These norms are influenced by previous experience and sociocultural features. For example, Mariana talked about hidden assumptions, is related to this norm. So it's hard to build shared norms that must be negotiated between teachers and students. For example, one norm can be referred to what is doing mathematics, what is a mathematical problem. A mathematical problem always must be formulated by the teacher, for example. In terms of sensitivity to students, diversity causes some difficulties. In any classroom, we can see different needs, abilities, preferences, styles of learning and thinking. So sometimes the teacher can be attending to some of these type of thinking, for example, but other students can be out of the attention. So it's difficult to adapt mathematics teaching to plurality of students. And if we attend to mathematical challenge, I think that a difficulty is to balance between challenge and feasible tasks. Some studies, and this is one of them, have classified mathematical tasks attending to their cognitive demand from memorization, that is the more basic level, to doing mathematics. So it's demanding to design mathematical challenging tasks and to maintain during the implementation this challenge. And this is my answer to the first question. I suppose that the other we can explain after. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your inspiring talk. I think it is very important for our overall discussion. We heard two interesting statements by eminent Spanish specialists. Now it's time for the group of Polish scientists. So I'd like to ask Professor Błaszczyk to take the floor and present your conceptions.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, I think I deal with the philosophy of mathematics. You will easily recognize it. However, I will try to be as specific as possible. So, as regards the barriers, I'd like to address the topic of abstractness. Modern mathematics provides a variety of techniques, and each proves useful in various areas, including physics, astronomy, navigation, IT, or mathematics itself, which means branches of mathematics. It means that a specific technique fits various scientific contexts. That is how I view the abstractness. And now, regarding techniques in school geometry, basically secondary school geometry, one can name trigonometry, similar figures, straight edge and compass geometry, or Cartesian geometry. These techniques were designed to solve specific problems, although throughout the ages they have found other applications. From that perspective, a theory is a set of propositions with the very final one, the very final proposition, the most important one. And non-abstract view of mathematics consists of presenting a theory in a context and in terms of its application. And now, can the secondary school curriculum can be reorganized according to these rules? And my answer is yes, it can. Now, what is the final proposition of the straight edge and compass geometry? It is the construction of the regular pentagon. In Greek mathematics, it was a part of a greater, it was put in a greater context of cosmology. There is no need to refer to this context. It's outdated now. What is the final proposition of the theory of similar figures? Similar figures, I cited the proposition. Similar figures are to one another as the square of their similar scale. And in such a way, this proposition has been applied, for example, optical geometry, to geometrical optics, and so on and so on. We can go to other theories. Following that idea, one can introduce the geometry, one can introduce into the curriculum of secondary schools the geometry of conic sections to the context of geometrical optics, shapes of lemons. A bunch of elementary geometry was employed to establish tables of signs, and those tables have been in use since the late antiquity till the end of the 17th century, as one can show a mathematical theory behind a Ptolemy tables of signs. And now it is up to the teacher to adopt his favorite context of application. And a good textbook should present 3 or 4 such contexts. So I refer to historical context, but by no means it's just my choice. There are many, many others. And in sum, mathematics can be presented as a set of propositions leading to a specific end, rather than a set of propositions with no end just for the sake of truth itself. And the final remark. As you know, new math project introduced the idea of solving problems. Accordingly, instead of an area of a figure, one is to compute an area of a, say, backload. Instead of a volume of a solid, one is to compute a volume of a, say, car park. From the perspective of sketch, it is rather important. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you very much for your talk. I'm waiting with great interest for greater interest for our next talk by Professor Schenberg. Please take the floor.
Okay, thank you. I think this problem of barriers in teaching and learning is very broad, actually, and I want to make it even broader, because this problem we don't encounter only in mathematics. There are a lot of problems in teaching the school system at large. It's very important to remember that the school system as we know it, which still is functioning, was invented at the beginning of 19th century as a response to the technology revolution and the need of taking care of kids, of people who go to work, and additionally of training very large part of society in counting and reading, basically, because this was necessary for jobs getting more and more competent. It was not sufficient to get this hands-on education as is sufficient in agriculture. The new generations of workers were supposed to be capable of reading instructions and getting feedback in written form. And this was the motivation. But now, after 200 years, we have another thing, very important revolution and advance. So we should adopt the system to these new circumstances. It's very difficult to separate this role of school as the place where parents can safely dump their kids and they are taken care of in some sort, and from the learning obligations of schools. It's not so clear what we should teach in schools, also in mathematics. George said, now we pretend that mathematics, this was also, I think, mentioned in Mariana's presentation, we should somehow convince students that if they learn mathematics, they will be able to solve practical exercises, like computing this volume of car park, or I will tell you about my experience with Thales theorem from 1995. I was teaching in the fifth high school in Krakow, which is there are only mathematics Olympiad students coming there. Nevertheless, we went to the main market in Krakow, where there is a tower which is pretty single in the market. So it gives a nice shadow. And we try to use theorem of Thales to compute the height of this building. This failed spectacularly. because results were very different, and also there were some other obstacles, like the tower is of course not, this has width and not only height, so it has to be taken into account and so on. And nevertheless, we tried still to convince students that mathematics is so important because it's everywhere. For example, in this computer, the communication we are using now is based on mathematics. And that's true. But there are a lot of chips in the computer, and it doesn't mean that everybody needs to understand microelectronics. So students don't buy it. They have a feeling that they are cheated, and I think they are partly right, because mathematics was in the medieval times part of trivium, because this is the field where you can taste your way of reasoning, of bringing arguments, and this was very important. Another subject next to mathematics or geometry at this time was rhetorics. Even if we have growing number of communication devices which we can use to communicate, I think we are losing ability as a large society to communicate, because it's very difficult to conduct discussions. So the problem is that we need to engage somehow students, and now I want to go to the good side of these practical exercises. I believe we should do this, but not isolated in mathematics, which is artificial. We should combine these exercises with physics, with chemistry, with informatics, and with other subjects, including Polish or Spanish or whatever, because there can be also very meaningful exercises done involving, for example, statistics. You can now easily get any text and make some statistical analysis of this text, and the outcomes are very interesting. So what I'm saying is that we should go back to the roots of the Platon Academy, basically, and forget about teaching the disciplines. Teaching mathematics alone, I think, is irrelevant anymore. This should be taught as part of the bigger complex. This is another paradigm which was coined in the US at the beginning of this century, and I think it has some future. This is STEM education. And of course, we should use technology. We cannot pretend that there is no technology. We cannot say, students, switch off your smartphones when they enter the class, because this is their work. They spend most time in the smartphones. So I think we need to find ways to use these devices in a clever way to engage students, which of course is not easy. If I have opportunity, then maybe I can develop it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your fine talk. It makes me think deeply about this problem. So with all the greater interest, I wait for Professor Yuskowia's comment on this topic, the barrier in teaching and learning presentation. Marek, mógłbyś pomóc? One moment, please.
Tak, tej użyjemy. To znaczy z pulpitu nie, ale tej, która była załadowana. To będzie to samo. Czyli którą mam teraz uruchomić? Yuskowię. Dobra. Tylko ja będę musiał zmieniać slajdy. Dobrze. Dobra. To znaczy mogę podstawić komputer. To po prostu będzie.
Bo się zamieni.
Przesuniemy.
So we have slides on the screen, and so we can start.
Teraz z jakiego mikrofonu mogę mówić?
Mikrofon.
I think that's, no, it's everything okay. I have some slides for you. I would like to start from the some sentence. It comes from the Tony Wagner book called Learning by Heart. Because we don't have a lot of time, I don't analyze this sentence, but I would like to say to you that for me, the most important are barriers from the process of learning and teaching students, especially from the primary school. You know, the barriers related to the organization of the learning and teaching environment are like this. That comes from my research. There is no active learning environment in Polish schools. Students are not motivated to think. Students must not make mistake. Errors are not used in the process of mathematical education. Memorization dominates. Today, it's difficult for students to reach the level of formal and critical thinking by the end of primary school if they are not provoked to this type of activity. Group work is avoided, and I think about the academic teacher forgot that the class is not only the most talented student. You know, my research is about the ways of students solving proof tasks and teachers' readiness to provoke the students' critical thinking. The main aim is about the methods of inference and argumentation, various attempts to solve geometric problem. It's about the students from the grade 7, and Polish is 14 years old. You know that mentioned Polish curriculum gives us information that the students should make their first independent attempts to critical assess mathematical situation during this time of the education. Now some information from the analyzing the Polish textbooks from the 7th and 8th grade. I mentioned about the justify, about the argumentation. From the 7th and 8th grade, the made important to Polish books have only 3, 6, 4, or 14% of tasks, in which the student should do some justifying, some argumentation. In my research was about 2,000 Polish students in age of 14 or 15. They had 6 tasks from geometry, non-typical. They have to do the solution, after this solution justified. I do the research before and after pandemic, and the main goal was the analysis of the students' thinking process during the solving task for inference and argumentation analysis of the manifestation formal thinking. You know, this is one part of the card, and one of these tasks was check what is the ratio of the area of shaded figures to the area of the rectangle. Not typical for the Polish textbooks. You know, I show you only the one table when I compare two small groups of students. One is before the pandemic and the second is after pandemic. One is only one because there are students from the same teacher, from the same textbooks, from the same school. Is very important in the research. And you have some information about the different strategies and the effects of this research. Some examples: the most of students use measuring and the empirical process to solve the task. Sometimes they try to use very new, non-typical strategy for solving the task, like here, or like here, it was the transformation of the rectangle. You know, very often there were no solution without comment, no solution with very sad comment, like I don't understand, I don't have the knowledge. Very often was no solution with the correct answer, sometimes no solution with incorrect answer and comments like, you can do it yourself without data. It's not typical for Polish students. They don't do this task. What is the open mind? Where is the process of thinking? So, some conclusions. Despite the interesting ideas for solving the task, students are not able to carry out correct and complete reasoning at the level of formal thinking. They introduce incorrect assumption about the length of the side of the rectangle, and the empirical approach to the task dominates. So they don't need to justify the correctness of the results obtained. After the pandemic, clearly fewer students became active and treated cognitive curiosity, and not only in the case of this task. So now is the question, how to organize a math lesson to provoke curiosity, activity, and various reasoning. You know, for me, I think that we have some ideas like makes you think. I think about the process of teaching, creating problems, applying various new teaching concepts, using teaching materials. But you know, the most important is to cooperate with scientists, to cooperate with mathematicians, to cooperate with the didactic of mathematics, and of course, self-education. The teacher has to be the primary mathematician, prepared to work in the profession. The most important is the teacher has to be the organizer of the thinking class. You know, I have some slides in Polish and in English. I would like to show you some rules, how to become a teacher in Polish standards. We have two ways, is the field of study and the postgraduate studies. But students who will be the teacher, mathematics teacher, informatics or computer science teacher, have to be an expert in mathematics, didactic in mathematics, pedagogy, psychology, and do some practice during her study. 1 week ago, when I was reading some Polish teachers' forums, I found this sentence. I think that is the most true. Teachers need a good, truly professional and modern system of preparation for work in the teaching profession, and then a system of supporting teachers in their development. Some problem, but in Poznań we have very, very important and innovation teacher training program. I know that UMCS in Lublin have the same. We do the teacher training program. To the teacher will be the expert in each of these fields. It is my last slide because I would like to ask us about how many laboratories or departments of didactic mathematics we have in Polish. How many Polish universities have the teacher training programs? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your historic talk. Now, last statement before all of us. I would like Professor Swoboda to present your statements.
Thank you for the invitation. Just to taking the time for preparation of my presentation, I wanted to say that I'm working as a teacher trainer at university and both as a researcher. So it's not mine.
Yes.
And for both roles I am playing, very important is one. No, it's not. It's
Okay, just a moment.
diagram prepared surprise in Spain. And probably you will see this diagram for a moment. It is diagram prepared by a team organized by Jose Camilo, and probably Mariana and Nuria knows it exactly. Oh yes, it is. And just a moment, you will see this diagram. So I'm directed as a teacher for something what you can see on this diagram. This diagram is divided for two parts. One part is related to teacher preparation, but this is preparation in math. So it is something like mathematical content knowledge, and it is clear because when we are working in Polish reality, generally it is clear what kind of topics is putting, and we have to work about it. It is something like curriculum at university. And we know what topics is necessary to elaborate. We know that it is necessary to show our student to feel what is the structure of mathematics, what is the methodology, what is, for example, role of definition. So here, when we are as a teacher good prepared, so it is no problem for us to work on this. And looking for another part, it is just big question marks. So many questions is still in face of us when we're trying to do about this. This other part, it is something what is named pedagogical content knowledge. But this is not general pedagogy. It is just pedagogy related to teaching and learning mathematics, just direct to mathematics. To understand what is a process of learning mathematics, what are obstacles, how methods are necessary to use on different educational levels. Before preparing to this panel, professor put to us three main questions. To one of question Nuria started to answer. I'm not sure that she finished her presentation, but I will. So you have seen this question, and I will reflect to this question at the end of my presentation. To be easier to understand my position, maybe I will relate to my observation done together with my colleagues from Rzeszów University, Marta Tytla. She was working with students, prospective teachers. It was group 25 of students. And she was working on course elementary geometry. Elementary geometry, and it was lasting 2 semesters, to 120 hours, so many. So she trying to work with students just to elaborate different concepts, different definition of concept, just looking for relation between different concepts. So just to clarify, so view on elementary geometry from mathematical point of view. After that, she was working with the same group of students. It was also 25 students, but she was working with in frame of didactics of mathematics. And students got some description of geometrical concepts. So many different kinds, and task for student was just to assess if this description are correct or not correct. If correct, say why is your opinion. If not correct, say why it was not correct, and try to improve. And what were this description? Description was crazy, but this is a really description which we obtained from students. Only one, it was what we wanted to accept as a proper definition. It was definition about trapezoids. Just, I will mention just only about trapezoid. What was our aim of observation? We wanted to know, first of all, how students will react. And from the other side, we wanted to know if they will decide that some definitions are not proper or descriptions are not proper. We wanted to say why they decide in such a way and in which way they will go in improving. And among other, we are interested in a relationship between their concept image and concept definition. What does it mean concept image? Or something what they know about trapezoid. It is something because it's very difficult in Polish reality because we have very, very long tradition about saying something about trapezoid. Very often, on lower educational level, there is something what is presented as a trapezoid. It is, instead of clear description related to other concept, very often it is just picture. Words are only just for very supported, are just taken as a support for what they see on the picture. It is a very typical position, a vertical position. Only one side is parallel, and usually one side is shorter, another is longer. You have seen here presentation from textbook, very, very old, but the same we have in today used example from, it is example for school for 10 years or 11 years old students. And we wanted to see a relationship between what they learn at university and their concept image. So I will not say very, very heavy about how we elaborate our observation, but answer was around. Just first, number one, it was done when students said everything is correct. And number 6, it was when the student said, no, it is not correct, it's necessary to change. And the student suggests changing, and this change is in related to definition just elaborated during their activities at university. What was the results? Students didn't have any problems in finding proper answer. So for it was acceptable without any doubt. But what is interesting, to this other answer. We have 25 students, 5 proposal to answer. It is 125 solution answer. Only twice students were able to answer, which we expected, that this is not proper, only to two proposals, and find what is not correct, how to improve what they should take into consideration. So what was another very interesting, that very often when they started to improve, to make any amendment, any correction, usually they relate to concept image. And what is our observation, our summaries of this observation? But at the same time, students have 2 different approaches to this one geometrical concept, trapezoid. And they use it simultaneously. And another, what was maybe the most important for us, that it is very, very hard to change first association which we have during long geometrical path or just long geometrical, not only geometrical, just didactical point. And maybe it's time for any conclusion. First issue put by professor, it was what are barriers. Still we are looking. We want to understand barriers. And very often we find something what is surprise for us. We try to look for the way how we have to talk, how to have to work with students. Very often we know that we wanted to have our students active. We want to be independent in thinking. We wanted to be creative. But we have to take into consideration that what my colleagues mentioned, it is abstract knowledge. It is abstract, so this means it's related to image we have in our mind. And very often we don't take into account that pure, really mathematics, it doesn't exist on high level. It starts from very, very beginning. It is absolutely necessary to know how to work on each educational level, not to create barrier. And we know for sure that we really create so many barriers, for example, for multiplication, sometimes for negative numbers, sometimes of geometry, and so on. So it is necessary still to make research about this observation. The second issue, what is a teacher's role? So don't put barriers, but what does it mean? Just to know only mathematics is little. It's necessary to know much more than only pure mathematics. When we start to work with child, with student, with adult, and we want to open to them space for thinking mathematically. So the last question doesn't need any answer because I wanted to show that we still have to make research just to look for the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to return to the Nuria because I'm not convinced that you finished your talk. Right?
Okay, if you want, I can say the most important things because some of them has been said for my colleagues. So if you want, for be shorter with the time, I only want to emphasize the importance for me of the teacher training, the initial teacher training and the development of teachers when they are working. My answer to the other question were related to the necessity to train to teachers not only in mathematical knowledge. They need a rich mathematical knowledge, of course, but they also need knowledge about teaching, learning, and the school. No, so I think that Eva has explained this very well. My conclusion was about the necessity to work together with teachers during initial teacher education and when they are teachers at the school, because sometimes they feel alone because, for example, in primary education, they are not specialists in mathematics, but in secondary education, they can know a lot of mathematics, but they don't know how to deal with this mathematics with the students, with resources, with difficulties. So if you want, I can short because the time is not enough. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you very much for your talk. I'd like to express my sincere thanks for all participants, but I have some question. Maybe someone would like to add something, comment, remarks. If not, I'd like to thank participants for the talk. During our discussion, many important and profound statements were made. I'm full of appreciation that so short work would be so valuable. As a short conclusion for our discussion is that we should identify barriers and create conditions to overcome them. We have new reality, but I think that our research will be good road to overcome the barriers. I know that the limited time for our discussion, also limited range of our talk, of our speech, but I'm convinced that everything that has been said, we will direct our further considerations. And I'm convinced that our discussion will not end at the end of this meeting. We will continue it by email during other conferences, for example, conference in Louvain will start soon. Once again, I would like to thank all the guests of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Can I say something?
No, yes, please.
So, personally, I wanted to thank to everybody who wanted to learn something from us or to listen to us. But really, I am very grateful for our colleagues from Spain. And I think that maybe it will be just start point to shorter collaboration. We will have so many common for discussion, for working together, and it will be really, really very helpful for us if you can support in our work, or we can exchange our idea, or just say it will be fine to have you just in our back, because really we need support. Didactics of mathematics is never done alone. So we need a group of people for common discussion, and just accept our invitation to collaboration.
Thank you. Eva, can I say something? I also want to thank you for the invitation, and especially I want to thank the two or many societies of mathematics that have included this panel, thinking that didactics of mathematics is not separated from mathematics. I think it's very important that we collaborate internationally among didacticians, but also with mathematicians, because there are many mathematics problems in teaching, and not only pedagogical or social or technological problems. And working with mathematicians is very important in didactics, in the same way that it is very important to work with teachers of the different levels, and also university teachers who happen to be mathematicians. So I think it's very good to have this community at large involving us with mathematicians instead of separate. And I'm very thank you to all the societies that have organized this meeting.
So thank you, Mariana. So I'm Montserrat Alzina, the president of the Catalan Mathematical Society, and I was going to say something like Mariana, because we were talking about barriers, and usually one of the barriers is between people who is mathematician and people who devote to didactic of mathematics. And so I have the feeling common with what Mariana was saying, that we need also perhaps to make against this barrier. And from our society, we are really trying to put together and to enjoy doing tables, discussions, because we need to work together for the mathematics, because all is for the good of, for the health of the mathematical and educational system. And so, for example, in Spain, there is the Comité Español of Mathematics, where different societies we are represented, and we organize a seminar that will be in Castro Diaz. I think you make reference to that, Eva. So one of the panels that we are going to have this year is exactly about international work, because in all countries we have several similar problems about these barriers, about the difficulty of the students. So it's very good to work together. And one of the panels this year will be exactly that. So I will take the opportunity also to thank the organizers to include as a session also this thematic of didactics. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, Christoph.
Okay, so maybe I will take the opportunity to add a couple of words to this issue which was brought up of apparently divided world between mathematics and didactics of mathematics. It's not the case, and you should never allow it. And actually, there is very good news, because first of all, education of mathematics was always considered by American Mathematical Society in the classification of mathematical branches as part of mathematics. This is number 97. But in the new proposal of classification, they expand the list considerably. There are now subject 101, which is divided in teaching and learning advanced topics, teaching and learning other topics, approaches to teaching and learning outside the classroom, and course and curriculum design and administration. So this shows that this American Mathematical Society pays a lot of attention to these issues. And I'm also a member of the Committee of Education of Mathematics of European Mathematical Society. And I'm aware that the European Mathematical Society also pays a lot of attention to keep teaching of mathematics in our hands, not to give it to pedagogy, because they have no idea about mathematics. So we are one world.
Thank you very much. Maybe someone would like. Yes.
Because the topic of research and educational studies was to be one of the topics, I've got a short comment concerning the reality, how it works. It's fine as regards declaration, but the practice is just the opposite. It's a case study. It's approved by a case study. Secondary school geometry is divided into Euclidean geometry and Cartesian geometry. And with my PhD student, we designed software and video game that altogether covers the teaching of Euclidean geometry. I mean, Euclidean geometry on the level of secondary school, plus some novelty concerning the mechanical theorem proving. It means that that part of curriculum could go digital. Okay. And now, education of mathematics is an empirical, rather a kind of a branch of mathematics, empirical science, meaning we first of all require funds to produce this software and video games, and then to test and evaluate them. The standard track in Poland, the standard track to apply is to apply to the National Scientific Center. Here's the problem. And now, there is no platform, no so-called panel, as they call it, for educational studies. Secondly, even if I manage, and some parts of the project I manage, to apply in a disguise of cognitive science, developing digital tools is not considered as scientific research in Poland. according to this national scientific standard. And that's how it really works in Poland. It's not a scientific activity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate research in didactics of mathematics. I'm some example that one can join mathematics, research in mathematics and research in didactics. But I have some problem. How to transfer results of research into school practice? Because this is not very simple. And maybe a few words about this. Professor Swoboda.
So I will try. We know that it is not simple. It is very difficult. What we need to connect our work, our results, our observation with school reality, and to work closely with teachers. So it is something what we try to do, but it is hard to organize, and this is not something what is typical in Poland. It is not something like postgraduate study or postgraduate courses for active teachers. They try to avoid proposal very often. But from the other side, what we are looking for reality connected with textbooks. Very often, authors of textbooks don't want to take into consideration some results obtained in research because different reasons. For example, for lower educational level, these textbooks are in hands of pedagogists. For higher level, there are mathematicians, and very often they are convinced that they know the best how to teach. So, and this is very, very difficult, very hard work to break barriers. I know that this is very often our fault, that we should to do first step to invite teachers, teachers to work together. And I think that my colleagues have the best experience in working in such a way.
I would like to add that I think the most important is to prepare the good program, teacher training program. It's the first. The second is to cooperate with the teachers. He would like to be the part of the field of mathematicians and didactic mathematics. We have to prepare the seminars. We have to prepare the congress and any times when we should discuss like today with the teachers about effect of our research and try to implement it to the school, I think.
Thank you very much. And what about the transfer of didactic research into school practice in Spain? Maria? Mariana?
I think it's the important things has been said, and I agree with the proposals made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, if I can say something, I want to reinforce the idea of teacher collaboration with researchers and doing communities together. I think that our main way of influence is to teachers, because if the teachers are convinced of the necessity to change the school, I think that is possible. But without teachers, it's not possible. So For me, the main is to work together, mathematicians, researchers on mathematics education, and teachers together. So I think that is the main solution. It's difficult, no? And we need some structure, but I think that is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our time is about to be over. So I would like to thank our participants, our guests. Thank you very much. We should close our meeting.